So imagine the absolute worst mistake you could possibly make at your job. Like the catastrophic email you just sent to the wrong client.
Oh, that is the worst feeling.
Right. Or, I don't know, the major deal you completely blew because of a math error. Or even just take it out of the office. Imagine you just realized you totally double booked a weekend with your in-laws and your absolute best
Oh,
friends.
no.
Yeah, and neither side is going to be happy about it. Just like sit with that feeling for a second. Your heart rate
You get
spikes.
that cold sweat.
Exactly. The temperature in the room suddenly feels like 10 degrees hotter. Your stomach drops through the floor because you realize you can't hide from it. You have to walk down the hall, knock on your boss's door, or pick up the phone and take accountability. You have to go, as we always say, face the music.
It is such a universally understood, incredibly visceral feeling,
Yeah.
just the absolute dread of impending consequences. And we throw that phrase around casually all the time without even pausing to think about the words tumbling out of our mouths.
Right. And when you actually do pause and look at those words, the metaphor makes almost no sense.
None at all.
I mean, if you are about to get chewed out by an executive, or you're about to admit you ruined a family vacation, there is no music playing. If anything, you're walking into a deeply uncomfortable, heavy silence. So why music?
It's completely counterintuitive. Human beings almost universally associate music with joy. It's for celebration, it's for dancing, it's for relaxation.
Yeah, it's a positive thing.
Exactly. Music is inherently harmonious, but in this one specific idiom, music becomes a threat. It represents something you have to brace your physical body against. It stands for danger, or accountability, or public punishment.
And figuring out how a joyful sound became a symbol of dread is our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking a massive stack of historical research tracing the nearly 200-year history of this exact phrase, going all the way back to the early 19th century.
Which is such a fascinating era to look at for language.
Totally. Because when you dig into the history, it turns out the music in question could come from two wildly different, incredibly vivid historical realities.
But before we dive into those two distinct worlds, we need to firmly establish the core definition of the phrase we're working with. Historically speaking, to face the music actually carries two slightly different shades of meaning.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is to meet or come up against the unavoidable consequences of your actions. You did something wrong, and now you are paying the toll.
Well, the accountability piece.
Yeah, exactly. But the second shade of meaning is a bit more nuanced. It means to confront a difficult or, potentially dangerous situation head on.
I see.
Yeah, that distinction is vital as we move forward. Are you facing the consequences of a bad decision you made? Or are you simply facing a terrifying situation that requires an immense amount of courage to survive?
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if the entire idiom revolves around the word music, the most logical place to look first is the place where music was literally front and center in the 19th century, the theater.
That brings us to the first major origin theory we're exploring, the theatrical theory. This places the birth of the phrase squarely in the chaotic, high-pressure world of the 19th century music hall.
So not exactly a quiet night out.
Oh, not at all. To really grasp why this makes sense, you have to throw away your modern conception of a polite, quiet Broadway theater and visualize the architecture and atmosphere of a theater 200 years ago.
Let's paint that picture. You have the stage, obviously, raised up for the performers. But directly between the edge of that stage and the auditorium where the audience is sitting, you have the orchestra pit.
And that pit is literal. The musicians are physically sunken down, often right below the sightline of the actors, or wedged directly between the performer and the crowd.
Wait, let's think about the mechanics of that for a second. Why put the orchestra in a trench right in front of the stage? Wouldn't that create a massive wall of sound between the actor and the people they're trying to entertain?
It absolutely did create a wall of sound, but it was a necessary architectural evolution.
How so?
Well, theaters needed the music to project outward into the cavernous auditorium, but they couldn't have a 30-piece orchestra blocking the visual sightlines of the wealthy patrons in the front rows. So they sank them into the floor.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah, this meant an actor walking out onto the stage would quite literally walk forward, look out toward the crowd, and have to physically face the music rising up from the pit directly beneath them.
And the sensory experience of that moment must have been overwhelming. We aren't talking about a modern stage with sophisticated spotlights. We're talking about the era of gaslights.
Oh, absolutely. Blinding, hissing gaslights lining the edge of the stage, right behind the orchestra pit.
So if you're the actor, you're stepping out of the shadows of the backstage wings. You walk forward into the searing, hot glare of the gaslights. You are virtually blind.
You can't even see the audience in the darkness beyond the stage.
Right. All you can hear is the roar of the crowd. And 19th century music hall audiences were notoriously rowdy. They weren't quietly sipping wine. They were yelling, throwing food, demanding to be entertained.
It was a tough crowd.
To say the least. And the only thing you can clearly see in front of you, through the glare of the lights, is the conductor and the musicians in the pit, instruments raised, waiting for their cue. The music is the literal physical barrier between the safety of the backstage and the judgment of that terrifying mob in the dark.
And that incredibly tense atmosphere gives us two distinct flavors of this theatrical anxiety. The first is simply the nervous entertainer facing a hostile crowd.
Which is scary enough.
Exactly. Taking that final step up to the edge of the stage, hearing the orchestra strike up your intro music, that requires an absurd amount of bravery. You haven't done anything wrong, but you are facing a monumental challenge.
But there's a second, far worse scenario here. Imagine an underprepared actor.
Oh, the actor's nightmare.
Totally. You are someone who hasn't quite memorized your lines or you haven't mastered the lyrics to the song, but the show must go on. You have no choice. You have to walk out into that blinding gaslight, fully knowing you're about to fail in front of hundreds of angry people.
What's fascinating here is the profound psychological weight of that specific scenario. Think about how it completely inverts the purpose of music.
Yeah, turning joy into panic.
Right. Normally, sitting in the audience, the sound of an orchestra tuning up and playing the overture is pure joy. You settle into your seat, you feel the anticipation, you're ready to be transported. But for that underprepared actor standing in the wings,
It's terrifying.
that exact same beautiful melody becomes a nightmare. It is the sound of impending doom.
It's a countdown clock.
Precisely. It transforms a joyful art form into an incredibly stressful psychological trigger. The rhythm isn't there to support them. It is there to force them into action before they are ready. They are being shoved onto the stage by the tempo of the song.
This is such a deeply relatable feeling, even if you've never acted a day in your life. I mean, it is the physical manifestation of modern-day imposter syndrome.
Oh, without a doubt.
Think about the last time you walked into a high-stakes meeting where you knew you were out of your depth. You have a presentation to give to the executive team, but you know your data is slightly flawed or you didn't finish the final slides.
We've all been there.
Right. You walk into that freezing cold boardroom, and what do you hear? You hear the low, mechanical hum of the projector warming up. You hear the clicking of expensive pens, people shifting in their leather chairs.
The modern symphony of corporate doom.
Yes. That projector hum, that is the modern equivalent of the orchestra warming up. You are stepping up to the podium, completely underprepared, and the projector is the music you are being forced to face.
It's a perfect parallel. And it perfectly aligns with the second half of the definition we established earlier, facing a difficult or potentially dangerous situation head-on.
Yeah.
The actor, or the modern office worker, hasn't committed crime. They might just be terrified or, slightly negligent. But the situation relentlessly demands that they confront the fear anyway.
I see how perfectly that fits the daunting challenge definition. But I'm actually struggling with the accountability angle here.
Okay, how so?
Well, if the phrase just originated from stage fright or even a forgotten monologue, why does facing the music so heavily imply actual punishment today?
That is a fair question.
I mean, when we use it now, we usually mean someone did something legitimately bad. They embezzled money, they lied to their spouse, they crashed the company car, and now they are getting caught. A sweating actor looking at a conductor isn't getting caught doing something unethical. They're just scared.
That is a brilliant pivot, and it is the exact logical gap that leads historians to the second, much darker theory. We have to leave the theater entirely.
The military theory.
Yes, the military origin theory posits that the music wasn't a sweeping melodic orchestra in a warm theater at all. Instead, it was an instrument of punishment.
Oh, wow.
Specifically, a punishment designed for a dishonorably discharged soldier or an officer who had disgraced their uniform.
So we are trading the blinding gaslights of the stage for a dusty, sun-baked military parade ground in the early 1800s.
Exactly. In the 18th and 19th centuries, if a soldier engaged in severely unscrupulous behavior, like theft, cowardice, insubordination, and it came to light, the military didn't just hand them a piece of paper and politely ask them to pack their bags.
Right. It wouldn't be that simple.
No, because the military relies entirely on unit cohesion, honor, and strict adherence to a chain of command. When someone breaks those rules so fundamentally, the command structure needs a way to visually and audibly signal to the rest of the camp that this behavior is a cancer, and it is being excised.
So they instituted what is essentially a punishing parade. Just the concept of a punishing parade is chilling. It sounds like an oxymoron.
It really does.
Yeah.
It was a highly orchestrated ritual of public humiliation, sometimes referred to historically as the Rogues' March.
The Rogues' March.
Yeah. The disgraced soldier would be stripped of their insignia, sometimes literally having the buttons torn off their uniform. And then they would be forced to march away from the camp, walking a gauntlet past their former brothers in arms, entirely ostracized.
And the soundtrack to this miserable, humiliating ejection, it wasn't a string quartet. It was the camp drummers beating their snare drums.
That was the music. A rough, percussive, relentlessly aggressive rhythm.
But why drums specifically? I mean, why not just march them out in silence, which almost seems more respectful, or just have the commanding officer scream at them?
Because silence allows for dignity,
Well,
and a commanding officer screaming can be argued with.
that makes sense.
The drums serve a very specific mechanical purpose in this psychological warfare. First, the deafening sound of a drum corps physically drowns out any protests, excuses, or pleas for forgiveness the disgraced soldier might try to shout to his former friends.
It literally strips them of their voice.
Completely. Second, the heavy, driving beat forces a marching pace. It physically pushes the soldier forward step by step out the gates of the camp. It is an auditory wall pressing against them.
Which gives us one of the most incredible etymological connections of this whole deep dive. This exact, brutal 19th century military practice is the literal reason we use the phrase being drummed out today.
Yes, exactly.
Like, when a corrupt CEO is forced to resign or a politician is caught in a massive scandal and forced to step down, we say they were drummed out of office. We aren't just using a metaphor, we are directly invoking those literal snare drums from 200 years ago that chased disgraced men out of town.
It's an undeniable connection, and in this brutal context, the soldier faces the music because his unethical behavior has been exposed.
Right, the accountability piece.
Right. The drums are the physical, auditory manifestation of his consequences. The music is the punishment itself.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because when you lay these two origin theories side by side, the contrast is breathtaking.
Oh, it's night and day.
Yeah. In the theater theory, you are facing a challenge. It's a test of your bravery. Can you step into the light and sing your song? The music is an invitation.
An invitation to perform.
Exactly. But in the military theory, you are facing irreversible finality. You already failed the test, you committed the crime, you ruined your honor, and the music is just the final punctuation mark on your ruin.
It really is the difference between anticipation and conclusion.
Ooh, I like that.
The theater orchestra is the beginning of a potential triumph or failure. The military drum is the absolute unquestionable end of something.
And think about the physical orientation of the person in these two scenarios. In the theater, you walk forward, you step out onto the stage, and you look down into the pit to literally face-to-face confront the music. You are looking the musicians in the eye.
Yeah, it's a very direct confrontation.
But in the military punishing parade, the drummers are likely behind you or flanking you, driving you away. You aren't making eye contact with the drums. You are facing the music in a much more existential way. You're facing the harsh reality of the drum beat, facing the reality of your total disgrace.
And that incredible duality brings us to the most frustrating and arguably the most fascinating part of this entire historical investigation.
The great etymological stalemate.
Exactly. We have these two incredibly vivid, meticulously detailed, historically plausible images in our heads. We have the terrified, sweating actor, blinded by gaslights, staring down into the orchestra pit.
Yep.
And we have the disgraced, humiliated soldier, stripped of his buttons, walking off the dirt parade ground to the sound of pounding snare drums.
Both of them fit the definition perfectly. Both of them make total logical sense as to why human beings would start using the word music to describe a terribly stressful situation. So which one is the true origin?
We don't know.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and according to the historical linguists, it is all but impossible to say with any certainty which one is correct.
I have to push back on this because this drives me absolutely crazy. We have the written records, right? We know the phrase dates back to the early 19th century in America.
We do?
We have letters, we have newspapers, we have diaries from that era. Why can't we just look at the very first person who ever wrote the phrase down and see what they were talking about? Did they write it in a review of a play, or did they write it in a letter home from a military fort?
You would think it would be that simple. But language doesn't work like a patented, well-documented scientific invention. The earliest recorded uses of the expression "face the music" in print simply don't give us the context.
Are you kidding?
I wish I was. The writers don't explain the origin, and crucially, the sentences around the phrase don't offer any clues as to whether they are referencing a stage or a battlefield.
So, someone in 1834 just writes down in a personal letter, well, Cousin John made a terrible mistake and now he has to face the music. And they completely assume the person reading the letter knows exactly what the metaphor means.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a beautiful, if frustrating, illustration of how history is actually recorded and how much of the rich texture of everyday human life is just lost to time.
That is so true.
Written records are fantastic at giving us a timestamp. They tell us the date a phrase became popular enough to make it into ink, but they almost always leave out the reason the phrase exists. You have to understand that when an idiom becomes popular in a culture, it functions exactly like an inside joke.
And the golden rule of an inside joke is that you don't explain the punchline every time you tell it. If you have to explain the joke, it ruins it.
Exactly. The people casually dropping "face the music" into their letters in the 1800s didn't need to clarify if they meant a vaudeville theater or a military camp, because every single person alive in their culture implicitly understood the reference. It was obvious to them.
But fast forward 200 years.
Right, the culture shifts. The original context evaporates into thin air. The inside joke is completely forgotten by society, and all we are left holding today is the punchline. The idiom itself is just an empty shell of the original joke.
So unless a historian happens to pry up a floorboard in an attic somewhere and discovers a diary that explicitly says, "I am dreading going on stage tonight and facing the music from the pit," or "I stood in the dusty courtyard and watched a traitor face the music of the drums today," we are permanently stuck. We cannot definitively crown one of these theories as the absolute truth.
And honestly, we have to acknowledge the possibility that neither of them is the truth.
Wait, neither?
History is tricky. Both of these brilliant theories could be later historical retrofits.
Yeah.
Clever explanations that people invented decades later to make sense of a phrase whose real origin was something entirely different, something we haven't even conceived of yet.
Oh man, that just adds a whole other layer.
It does. But based on the massive amount of circumstantial evidence we currently possess, the theatrical barrier and the military punishment remain our two absolute best, perfectly opposed candidates.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring us all the way back to the beginning. We started this deep dive by picturing you, the listener, sitting at your desk, realizing you made a catastrophic error.
Or double booking that precious weekend.
Right, and feeling that heavy knot of dread forming in your stomach. The need to stand up, walk into the next room, and take accountability.
The unavoidable confrontation with reality.
Yes. The very next time you find yourself in that exact situation, the next time you realize you have no choice but to go face the music, you can take a deep breath and ask yourself a question.
Which is?
Are you the underprepared actor, stepping out of the shadows into the blinding glare of the spotlight, desperately hoping you can remember your lines while the orchestra plays from the trench? Or are you the disgraced soldier, stripped of your rank, walking the lonely gauntlet of the parade ground while the pounding drums drive you out of the camp?
It's a great visual to keep in mind.
Right, because either way, whether your trial is a test of theatrical bravery or a ritual of military humiliation, you are actively participating in a 200-year-old linguistic tradition just by opening your mouth to speak.
This raises an important question, though. Something for you to genuinely ponder as you navigate the rest of your week.
Okay, lay it on us.
Pay close attention to the words casually tumbling out of your mouth today. Every single time you speak, you are stringing together idioms, metaphors, and ancient slang. How many other casual phrases do you rely on every day that carry this kind of hidden, heavy historical weight?
Oh, probably dozens.
Exactly. You are constantly invoking the ghosts of 19th century theaters, the phantoms of military parade grounds, the echoes of old wooden ships, and the grit of industrial factories. And you've completely forgotten about all of them while you chat over your morning coffee. You are carrying centuries of raw human drama right on the tip of your tongue, completely unaware of the complex historical music you are actually playing.
It really makes you wonder what kind of internet age technological inside jokes we are making today that people 200 years from now are going to be agonizing over in a stalemate of their own. So the next time you have to make that terrible, dreaded phone call to your in-laws to cancel the weekend, just listen closely before they pick up. You might just hear the faint, rhythmic tap of a snare drum.